I've had people ask me, Charlie, can you explain how our money system works in under 10 minutes? So I'm going to take a shot at that. Our money system comes to us from Babylon. In Babylon, the money was grain, wheat. If people wanted to buy, say, a pair of shoes, they'd take the appropriate amount of wheat to the shoemaker and exchange wheat for shoes or for whatever they wanted to buy. There was also in Babylon the Babylonian grain bank. If people had excess wheat that they didn't need to spend or to eat or to plant at a particular time, they'd deposit it into the grain bank. The grain banker would issue them a receipt for the wheat. Over time, the tendency developed that when people wanted to spend their wheat, their money, rather than take the receipt back to the grain banker and get the wheat and spend the wheat, they'd simply spend the receipt. And the receipt circulated through the economy as if they were the money. Well, now the Babylonian grain banker at times would loan out his own wheat at interest, earn a little revenue off of it. Say somebody needed wheat to plant a crop, he might loan them 10 bushel of wheat this year, and when harvest came in, they would owe him, say, 11 bushel. He'd earn a little interest off of it. Well, one day somebody came to the Babylonian grain banker and wanted to borrow wheat. But he didn't want the wheat to eat or to plant. He wanted the wheat to spend. He asked the Babylonian grain banker to give him a loan. And the grain banker realized that he didn't have any of his own wheat, that it was already all loaned out at interest. But then the borrower said that he didn't really want the actual wheat. What he really wanted was a receipt because he was just going to spend it anyway. At that point, the grain banker thought, you know what? That wheat just sits there. People continually spend my receipts. Who would know if I had more receipts outstanding than I had wheat? So he just sat down and wrote out another receipt for a unit of wheat that already had a receipt issued against it. He issued 2 receipts for 1 unit of wheat. Now I want you to think about what he just did. He violated 2 moral absolutes. The moral absolute against lying. He issued a false promise. He promised to redeem that receipt with wheat, and he couldn't do it. And he also stole value from everyone who had either a receipt or wheat. Because what he was doing was creating money. When we create more money, we cause inflation. The money supply inflates or gets larger, which causes the value of the money to decrease. What he was doing was stealing value from everyone who either had wheat or his receipts. Now today we've got a money system that operates in very similar manner. Now I like to ask people 2 thought-provoking questions. Number 1, when the federal government deficit spends, does it get deeper in debt? Most people I find answer that question yes. And then the second question is, when the government deficit spends, does it create money to cover the deficit? And I find, again, most people answer that question yes. But I want you to think about that. Both of those questions cannot be answered yes. Think about this. If you had the legal authority to go down in your basement and run your printing press and print money, couldn't you print your way out of debt fairly quickly and easily? Well, then why does our government just keep getting deeper and deeper in debt? Well, the answer to that question is that our money supply is not created by our government. Our money supply is created by the privately owned Federal Reserve banking system. The Federal Reserve banks are owned by the member commercial banks. And the way our money system works is when the federal government deficit spends, it creates a bond, and it sells that bond to the Federal Reserve banking system. The Federal Reserve banking system buys that bond with money that it creates exactly the same way that the Babylonian grain banker created money, by simply writing out a receipt and buying. It costs nothing to do that. And then the American people are taxed to pay back the amount borrowed plus interest. All money in existence comes into existence in that way. All money in existence is loaned into existence as a debt accounting entry and must be paid back to the money creator plus interest. That is the fatal flaw in our money system. You cannot pay the only money creator more money than he has created. All you can do, or all the people and the government can do, is fall deeper and deeper in debt to the money creator. Now I want you to think about the world situation. Most of the nations of the world have banking systems that work very similar to ours. Most of the nations of the world are very deep in debt. Who is all that debt owed to? It's owed to the world's banks and the world's banking systems. Nations are falling deeper and deeper in debt. As an example, people say, well, it's our imbalance in trade that causes our problem, and that's a problem. But think about Japan. Japan is a mighty exporting nation, but it is deep in financial trouble, and it's because it has a banking system similar to ours. The United States is probably 2 to 3 years away from being in the situation that Greece is in today. We are looking at an economic disaster on the horizon. What's the solution? The solution is that our monies should be created directly by the federal government, spent into existence, and then with the proper balance of government money creation and taxation, the people can be supplied with a debt-free money system to carry on commerce. The reserve ratio should be made 1-to-1, which would mean that banks could no longer create money out of nothing. The way banks would operate is the way savings and loans operated pre-1980. They would take in savers' money at one rate of interest, loan it out at a higher rate of interest, and make their profit off the difference. They would also charge a fee, the fee that actually represented the cost, for services such as checking and any other services that they provide to customers. My name is Charlie Fuqua. I've written the book God's Law, the Only Political Solution, and my website is godslawforamerica.com. All of our problems are the result of violations of God's laws. Our economic problems are the result of the fact that our money system is in violation of 2 of the 10 commandments against stealing and lying.